There comes a moment when your heart grows heavy, your spirit grows dim, and you wonder if the sun will ever rise again. Yet it is in that very darkness that your rebirth begins. To embrace your sadness instead of running from it is to meet yourself at the deepest, rawest level of your being, where pretense cannot exist, where masks fall away, and where truth waits quietly, patiently, like a friend who has never abandoned you. Most people spend their lives running from sadness as if it were a thief in the night, as if it were a shadow they must escape at all costs. But in truth, sadness is not an enemy. It is a mirror reflecting the corners of your soul that demand acknowledgement. It is the voice of your spirit telling you that something matters, that you have loved, that you have lost, that you have hoped and found hope broken. To run from it is to deny the very parts of yourself that need recognition and healing. To embrace it is to say, I see you, I feel you, and I will not turn away. And in that recognition lies the first spark of liberation. When you allow yourself to sit with sadness, to breathe it in and let it move through your veins, you begin to discover that it is not static. It ebbs and flows like the tide, arriving in waves that crash against your defenses, yet retreating gently if you do not resist them. Sitting with sadness requires courage because the mind screams at you to fix it, to flee from the ache, to cover it up with distractions or numbing agents. But true bravery is different. True bravery is learning to remain in the room with your own sorrow, to feel it fully without judgment, without shame, without the compulsion to escape. In the act of facing sadness, you honor the human experience in its entirety, acknowledging that life is not only joy and laughter, but also pain, disappointment, grief, and longing, and that these experiences shape you into someone profoundly alive. Embracing sadness is not a passive act. It is an active engagement with your own humanity. It asks that you be honest with yourself about what has been lost, what has been denied, what has been feared, and what has been misunderstood. Each tear you allow yourself to shed, each sigh you release, each memory you sit with is a step toward understanding the intricate tapestry of your emotions. You begin to see that sadness is not a stain on your life, but a signal of depth, a reminder that you have cared, that you have dared to love and hope. The act of facing your sadness openly teaches you that to be human is not to avoid pain, but to live fully with it, to allow it to pass through you without letting it define you entirely, and to emerge on the other side more whole, more self-aware, and more capable of genuine empathy. When you embrace sadness, you also cultivate patience, because healing cannot be hurried, and the soul cannot be forced to skip steps in its natural process. You learn to sit with discomfort without panic, to let silence speak, to let reflection deepen. In embracing sadness, you give yourself the gift of presence, the gift of noticing your own inner life, the gift of witnessing your own struggle without judgment. You begin to notice patterns, triggers, and truths about yourself that were hidden under layers of denial, distraction, and fear. Sadness becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor, a guide rather than a barrier, illuminating the paths you must walk to reclaim your own sense of wholeness. By choosing to stay with your sadness, you honor your inner truth and refuse to let the world dictate the pace or shape of your emotional journey. You allow your heart to be fully seen by yourself, without apology, without disguise. You recognize that each painful moment carries wisdom, each ache carries insight, and each wave of sorrow is an invitation to deeper connection with the self. In that honest engagement with your pain, you discover resilience, courage, and a capacity for tenderness that cannot be learned through avoidance. You discover that healing does not come from ignoring sadness, but from embracing it, from letting it speak, from letting it move through you like wind through trees, rustling leaves, shaking loose what no longer serves you, and whispering quietly that growth, understanding, and eventual peace are born not in denial, but in the deliberate, unwavering, unflinching encounter with your own truth. To express your emotions aloud is to step into a sacred act of courage, a rebellion against the quiet suffocation that builds within your chest when words and feelings are kept locked away. So often, the world teaches us to bury our tears, to swallow our anger, to disguise our fear, to cloak our longing in smiles that do not reach the eyes. And yet, the human heart was not made to endure silence when it is full. It was made to speak, to release, to find resonance with the air and the echoes around it. When you allow yourself to vocalize your feelings, whether in whispers, cries, shouts, or laughter, you are giving the heart permission to breathe, to unburden, and to reclaim space that has been denied to it by fear, shame, or habit. Every emotion you voice becomes a small liberation, a tiny revolution against the pressure that threatens to crush the spirit. And in that liberation, you discover the first whispers of freedom. There is a power in speaking aloud that cannot be replicated in private thought or in silence. Words carry weight, they carry energy, they carry validation from the very act of articulation. When sorrow, grief, frustration, or longing find a voice, they begin to lose their oppressive grip. When you admit out loud, even to yourself, I am hurting, or I am tired, or I need help, the invisible chains that bind the heart begin to loosen. The emotion no longer festers in hidden corners where it can grow poisonous. Instead, it becomes a living, moving thing that can be shaped, released, and transformed. To speak is not weakness. It is a testament to the strength required to acknowledge your own existence, your own pain, and your own humanity. In every syllable, every breath that carries your feelings into the open, you are planting seeds of healing. Crying aloud, shouting into pillows, talking to a trusted friend, or even writing your thoughts and reading them back to yourself is an act of alchemy. It turns the weight of the heart into a current that can flow instead of stagnating and rotting in hidden chambers. When emotions are repressed, the pressure accumulates in the chest, in the throat, in the stomach, and it manifests in ways we often fail to recognize. Restlessness, irritability, sleeplessness, physical tension, and the quiet despair of a spirit trapped beneath its own layers. But the moment you give voice to your inner storm, the storm begins to release. And in its release, you find clarity, perspective, and relief. You discover that expression is not indulgence, it is necessity. It is the body and soul's natural design to survive the weight of living and to thrive despite it. Expressing your emotions aloud also reminds you that you are not alone, that the human experience is shared in its joys and its pains. When you speak your grief, someone may hear, someone may nod in recognition, someone may simply be present, and in that presence, the weight is halved, the heart is lightened, and the world becomes a little less heavy. You come to understand that emotions are not burdens to be hidden, but messages to be honored, communicated, and allowed to move. You find that by vocalizing your feelings, you invite empathy, you invite connection, you invite understanding, both from yourself and from the universe around you. To express emotions aloud is also a declaration of authenticity. It says, without apology, that you are human, that you feel, that you live, that your inner world matters. It allows the pressure inside your heart to dissolve into sound, into motion, into air that moves and shifts, leaving space for clarity and renewal. Every cry, every shout, every word spoken into the emptiness or to a listening ear carries a piece of release, a piece of reclamation, a piece of self-respect that cannot be taken by circumstance or ignored by time. Through expression, the heart learns that it can survive, that it can endure, that it can rise, that it can be known, and that in being known, it becomes lighter, freer, and stronger, and begins to understand the truth that emotions are not to be feared, but to be voiced, not to be controlled, but to be honored, not to be hidden, but to be shared. To let your tears cleanse your spirit is to honor the deep, often unspoken truth of your inner world, to recognize that grief, sorrow, disappointment, and heartbreak are not enemies, but sacred teachers sent to guide you through the labyrinth of your own soul. Many fear tears, thinking them a mark of weakness, a public display of fragility, a surrender to circumstance, but in reality, tears are one of the most profound instruments of strength ever bestowed upon humanity. They are a language older than words, older than thought, a primal rhythm that moves through the body, purging pain, carrying away sorrow, and creating a channel for resilience to flow. When you allow yourself to cry, to release the water of your spirit, you are participating in a sacred ritual of purification, an act that washes away the weight that life has imposed and makes space for clarity, understanding, and eventual joy. Tears have a way of reaching the places that words cannot, of dissolving the shadows that accumulate in the corners of your heart, of loosening the grip of pain that seems immovable. They slide quietly down your cheeks, gentle yet insistent, soft yet relentless. And in their passage, they remind you that suffering is not a prison, but a passageway. Each tear carries with it a story, a memory, a lesson, a sorrow that has been held too long. When you allow these tears to fall, you acknowledge those stories, you give voice to those memories, and you honor the emotions that demand recognition. In this sacred act, the heart learns that it is not alone, that the body is a vessel capable of carrying sorrow and transforming it, that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the courage to endure it fully and to emerge on the other side with new understanding and deeper strength. There is a rhythm to tears, a cadence that mirrors the ebb and flow of life itself. They rise in moments of grief, in moments of disappointment, in moments of longing, and they fall in moments of release, in moments of surrender, in moments of transformation. To resist them is to resist the very rhythm of living, to deny the body and soul the chance to heal and to move forward. When you allow your tears to flow freely, you are aligning yourself with the natural course of existence, acknowledging that life is neither flat nor simple, that it is marked by peaks of joy and valleys of pain, and that both are necessary for growth. In every tear that falls, you teach yourself patience, compassion, and the delicate art of self-care. For you learn that it is acceptable to feel, to express, to release, and to trust that the world will not break because you have allowed yourself to cry. Tears are also teachers of resilience because they remind you that strength is not in hiding, but in showing, not in pretending, but in feeling fully, not in enduring silently, but in surviving with awareness. Each tear demonstrates that you have been through struggle, that you have loved, that you have hoped, and that you have not surrendered to despair, even when the darkness has pressed against you. The act of crying is not a collapse, but a recalibration. It is the heart's way of reminding itself that it can bend without breaking, that it can feel without dissolving, that it can survive the fiercest storms of emotion and still find the light on the horizon. Allowing tears to cleanse the spirit is also an act of courage because it requires surrender, vulnerability, and honesty. It requires you to stand face to face with your own humanity, to acknowledge the wounds that life has delivered, and to trust that the release of emotion is not a defeat, but a reclamation. With each tear, you release tension, anger, fear, and sorrow, making room for clarity, peace, and the quiet strength that grows only in the presence of authenticity. Tears teach that resilience is not built in the absence of hardship, but in the embrace of it, that healing is not achieved through resistance, but through acknowledgement, and that the spirit, when allowed to express its deepest truths, emerges stronger, wiser, and more unshakable, learning from each fall and each stream of water that life's challenges are not the end, but the shaping of the soul. To reconnect with nature and your body is to return to the sacred rhythm that life has always offered, to step out of the noise of the mind and into the quiet of existence where the earth meets your feet, the wind brushes your skin, and the sun warms your face. Too often, when we are consumed by sadness, anxiety, or despair, we forget that our bodies and the natural world are intertwined, that they hold the keys to balance and to the gentle reminder that life flows in cycles, that seasons change, and that even in the darkest winters, growth is quietly waiting beneath the surface. To place your feet upon the soil, to feel the texture of grass or the firmness of stone, to listen to the rustle of leaves or the murmur of water, is to remember that you are not separate from the world, but part of a greater whole, a thread in the vast tapestry of existence, capable of absorbing, reflecting, and harmonizing with the energies around you. The body remembers what the mind sometimes forgets. It remembers the rhythm of your heartbeat, the rise and fall of your breath, the weight and presence of your limbs, and it whispers to you in the subtle language of sensation and movement. When sadness grips you, your body may become tense, tight, and rigid. Your chest may feel heavy, your back may ache, your shoulders may carry burdens that are not yours alone. By reconnecting with your body, by moving intentionally, by stretching, walking, bending, or even sitting in stillness and noticing every breath, you allow your physical being to release the stored tension and to return to its natural state of flow. The body, like the earth, is resilient, adaptive, and wise, and it longs for the moments when it can remind you of your own strength, your own rhythm, and your own ability to endure and to heal. Nature, too, is a teacher, a healer, and a mirror for the soul. When you step outside and immerse yourself in the sights, sounds, and smells of the natural world, you are reminded that life persists, that rivers continue to flow, that trees grow and bend without complaint, that birds sing even in storms, and that the wind carries whispers of renewal and possibility. To observe the grandeur of a mountain, the quiet patience of a river, or the delicate bloom of a flower is to witness resilience, adaptability, and beauty in its purest form, and in doing so, your own spirit finds reflection, comfort, and guidance. Nature does not rush you, does not demand from you, does not judge you. It simply exists in harmony with itself. And by aligning yourself with its presence, you learn that you too can exist in harmony with your own emotional tides, finding calm amidst chaos and grounding amidst uncertainty. Reconnecting with your body and with nature restores balance by reminding you of the inherent wisdom that resides in both. It reconnects your mind to your heart, your breath to your movement, your sorrow to your joy, your despair to your hope. Walking barefoot on earth or sand, feeling the sun on your skin, inhaling the scent of rain-soaked soil, or listening to the song of birds at dawn teaches that emotional balance is not found in control, but in connection. Not in avoidance, but in presence. Not in fleeing from your feelings, but in anchoring yourself within the living world that mirrors your own resilience and capacity for growth. Each step, each inhalation, each observation becomes a meditation, a ceremony, and a reaffirmation that you are alive, that you are present, and that your spirit can be restored by simply allowing yourself to participate in the rhythms that have sustained life since time immemorial. In this reconnection, you discover that emotional balance is not an abstract goal, but a living, breathing experience. It is found in the warmth of sunlight on your face, in the coolness of water flowing over your hands, in the grounding pressure of the earth beneath your feet, and in the gentle acknowledgement of your own physical and emotional presence. The body and the world together become a sanctuary, a reminder that you are part of something larger, that your emotions are natural currents meant to be felt and understood, and that by reestablishing contact with both, you can regain clarity, calm, and a profound sense of harmony, understanding that the balance you seek has always been accessible, always present, and always waiting for you to simply notice, to step forward, to breathe, and to trust in the interconnectedness of life. To lean on loved ones is to acknowledge that no human being is meant to carry the weight of the world alone, that even the strongest among us are strengthened by connection, and that companionship is not a crutch but a bridge to resilience and renewal. In times of sorrow, grief, or despair, we often withdraw, believing our pain is ours alone, that to share it is to burden others, or that to lean on someone is to reveal weakness. But the truth is that love and presence are the most potent healers, and when we allow ourselves to be held, guided, and comforted, the journey through darkness becomes less daunting. To reach out to speak honestly to those who know and cherish us is to invite understanding, empathy, and shared strength into our lives, creating a network of support that transforms isolation into belonging and helplessness into hope. Human beings are wired for connection, for intimacy, for the sacred exchange of energy that comes from being seen, heard, and valued. When we share our burdens with those who love us, we release the tension that has accumulated inside, unspoken, unacknowledged, and often misinterpreted by our own minds. Words spoken in trust, tears shed in the presence of understanding, silence shared in mutual recognition. These are not acts of dependency, but acts of courage and wisdom. In leaning on loved ones, we affirm that we are worthy of care, that our struggles are legitimate, and that healing is not a solitary endeavor. The presence of someone who truly sees us allows the soul to exhale, to feel less encumbered by the heaviness that it has carried alone, and to recognize that connection itself is a balm for the heart. Companionship amplifies resilience because it reminds us that we are not defined by suffering, that our pain is not permanent, and that the world contains hearts willing to meet ours with compassion. Loved ones act as mirrors, reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that have been hidden beneath fear, doubt, and sorrow. They remind us of our courage when we feel small, our value when we feel unworthy, and our capacity for joy when we are weighed down by despair. In the simple act of sharing a story, a memory, a fear, or a hope, the burden becomes lighter, the path clearer, and the spirit more fortified. Healing grows exponentially in the soil of connection, watered by empathy, nourished by presence, and strengthened by the shared acknowledgement of life's trials and triumphs. There is also a sacred reciprocity in leaning on loved ones, for as we allow ourselves to be supported, we are reminded of the profound beauty of giving support in return. Compassion becomes a river that flows both ways, teaching us that vulnerability and strength are not opposites, but partners, intertwined in the delicate dance of human existence. To hold another, to listen fully, to offer patience, and to share moments of quiet understanding is to cultivate a garden of trust and love where the heart can heal in the company of those who care. In these exchanges, we learn that companionship does not erase pain, but it reframes it, situates it in a context of shared humanity, and allows us to walk through it with lighter steps and braver hearts.